my friends, I'm Rick and this is your seat at the table, and we are looking at the PDF version of the classic Marik Handbook, circa 3060. So this is in that 3060 series, and so we would have had the original house manuals, and then there was the field guides that came out, and then this is the next follow up to that. And so when I read through these, and I really enjoy a lot of aspects of these kind of novel or these kind of source books for a number of reasons. Mostly because it gives me a bigger, brighter picture of how I think life would exist in this part of fictional science fiction fantasy setting. Anyhow, the thing is, so there's a lot of rehash where they write this as if you've never seen the first two, and so there's a lot of material that's basically rewritten from the original stuff. Some of it's verbatim from the original book, but most of it's been tweaked a hair, and I'm not savvy enough to sit down and tell you exactly where, but in my feeling, in my gut, when I read it, I'm thinking there's something a little off or different or revision. It happens. That is the nature of the beast. But it also it helps cover an era that for House Americans, the Free Worlds League in general, was really kind of a mini golden age for a minute. After the end of the FedCon Civil War, the Free Worlds League were more or less left alone. It's not until they get back, they re-involve themselves briefly in conjunction with the Compellans to slap back at the FedCom. It was anyway. And then I think that's a little later. So at this point, the clans invade, and the Free Worlds, for once in the Free World's history, they're not in part of the frontline issue, and they find themselves in a valuable position to become a crucial military industrial supplier for everybody else, and all the benefits that garners them with so little risk. The Free Worlds Leagues did not have to sacrifice units or resources. I mean, other than donating some things, they got paid for most of the stuff, and they got access to a lot of extra technology and industrial assistance for modernizing the equipment and sources they had, and that's a crucial thing that I heard somebody else talking about not too long ago, and I can't remember what video and whose video it was I was watching. They were talking about it. That comes to mind that at the era of 3025, we see the inner sphere capability, industrially speaking, at its lowest ebb since before the Star League formed, if not its lowest ebb ever. And we see it begins to. This is why the third succession war petered out. By default, everybody just agreed that it was over with, and then since nothing serious happens for a number of years, the historians print stamp paid on it and move on to a new era. Which at that point we start seeing this gradual reintroduction of technology. There's a combination of things. Most of it gets put onto the shoulders of the discovery of the Helm Memory Core, which grant you is a massive boon for the inner sphere technology-wise. But there was also just prior to that. So just prior to the 3025 era, so 3020, 3019, the battle going on Galadin 4 or something like that, where when Ion, the same fighting that era that saw Hans Davion's brother get killed in defending his troops, and Hans becoming First Lord, there's this recovery of an actual physical Star League library, or significant portion, something like 20,000 books, technical books and things like that, that were actually able to get spirited out by the Federated Sons. The rest of it was destroyed, both as using the place as bait, and then to deny the resources of the rest of that library to anybody else, which I thought was horrifically stupid. Because you know what, if the Draconis Combine didn't burn it down on their own, but they confiscated his stuff. That's where your spies come in to steal it back. I mean, or steal it from him. I mean, it's just, hey, just my thought on stuff, right? So this novel, I mean, the source, the material is really good, and it's more flavored with the Fan Pro era that I'm becoming more accustomed with as I read more and more of this material. I think the window of time in actual game years between the field manuals are not very much, and so this feels like a lot of already covered material in the other two books in my first glance thoughts. And then I keep having to remind myself that what if you don't have those previous books, right? So I mean, anyway, we get some good artwork and stuff in the back, which you can see the artwork's evolving. Fan Pros has more resources. We also see additions, like I said, which is becoming more, I expect from Fan Pro products, of things like beasts and animals and equipment and vehicles that are not necessarily, military in nature, because the inner sphere in the periphery in the BattleTech universe is much, much grander than it sometimes can be presented in just combat. Lots of stuff on engineering and corporations and stuff. I noticed that we see an uptick in the Fan Pro era of corporation information, larger numbers of potential employers for mercenaries and or private security force campaigners that they want. I'm just saying that there's a huge number of options for things like that. if you want to play that kind of game, so yeah, we go through the touring the planets. Some key changes. Another thing was this change is the false Thomas, or Marik, when he gets put in charge. Things are actually really on the, when they're their best that they can get. In steps Word of Blake. So we see this illusion, things actually getting even better, because this collusion now of this increasingly more focused Word of Blake, as they leave Comstar in greater numbers and form up around on and around Gibson, and then start digging into the Free Worlds League as a general, trying to get their clutches into as much power as they can. This begins to become a problem that would have exploded sooner or later anyway. It's tragic that it went the way it did, and I haven't got to the point where I've read anything directly on the era of when that part of the jihad, but no, I have touched a little bit on that, I guess, right? So yeah, this is a good book. I mean, don't knock it. I found it fairly easy read. That was in part because, like I said, I glazed over certain sections because they were just repetitive, and they're great they're great source material when you need them. Then there's the section on economics was actually very enlightening in ways, because it helps to set the attitude and understanding of an era for a specific house. And when the jihad hits things hard, it's not totally unexpected that the Free Worlds League breaks up, because it's of all the houses, the doom and gloom. Every house has been doom and gloom every era that this will probably be the end for the the Draconis Combine or the Federated Sons, etc., etc. And it never turns out that way. The only place that was fractionally likely to break up would be the Free Worlds, because of how it was put together in the first place, and how independent the smaller nation states are. I say that over and over again, that all the great houses have many smaller houses within them. Some of them are significant controlling elements within that house, and some are not. So, but the facts are they're there, and those play an influence. And we see that in the Free Worlds League, because the Dutry Andrians, I'm always bitching and crying about how they should be independent anyway. And they have made several attempts. They're a la Texas, right? No, I'm just saying that eventually my argument was always, what's the real value here? And we're keeping the Andrians as part of the league against their will, because we would be in constant conflict with them if they were independent, because that's going to be how that plays out, or they'll end up being absorbed by the Confederation, because that's how that's about. I mean, it's kind of a, how do you play that scenario? It's very twisted and convoluted and potentially, destructive. So when they finally break away and they gain some independence, I say more the merrier. If I was a Free Worlds League, I wouldn't take them back. That'd be a compelling problem. Just my personal opinion. Right? Yeah, this is a really good one. And I've seen this one on, I think you can get this from CGL fairly reasonably. I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it. So if you're looking for that 3060 era material, this is a good one for the House Marik. If you're looking to understand a little bit where they were prior to where they are current Ilkan era, this would be a good solid foundation to work upon. And other than that, hey, you guys have yourself a great weekend. Because you want the cat girls to exist.